Take it off of me while you still can!
Yes, it's Stephen King's most horrifying tale to date. The bloody origin story of how Dennis the Menace got his famous slingshot. Jesse Shade here for Awfully Good Movies on behalf of the JoBlo YouTube network. And 50 years after his first novel, Stephen King's bibliography is still providing the basis for plenty of new movies and TV shows out there. But nothing is going to have the impact on me like when I was 8 and first saw Pet Sematary 1 and 2 in a double feature on the Sci-Fi Channel. Like, it was about 20 or so minutes into that first movie that I got so freaked out and scared that I called up my mom while I was at my dad's place that weekend and asked her, "Mom, can I come to your place for the weekend instead? I'm so scared." And the minute that she brings me back to her house, you know what I did? I went right back to watching Pet Sematary. It was around the time that Zelda came into the movie that I got even more freaked out and scared and called my dad up screaming along with the movie, "Zelda's dead! Zelda's dead!" And he had to come pick me up from my mom's house and take me back to his place, to where I immediately started watching Pet Sematary again. I put my parents through this hell 3 times over the course of that evening. But thankfully, I was not as frightened in my childhood by another supposedly horrifying Stephen King tale that is the subject for this abnormally thin episode of Awfully Good Movies.
Now that 2 years have passed since the first half of the cinematic remake of Stephen King's It was released to critical and audience success, the time has finally come for the Grown-Up Losers Club to reunite in the town of Derry, Maine, and face off once more against that demonic dancing clown by the name of Pennywise, in the second and final chapter of It. And with the It sequel coming out in the same year as the Pet Sematary remake and the much anticipated sequel to The Shining, it's safe to say that Stephen King's brand of literary horror will remain enormously popular with film and TV audiences for a long time to come. But while plenty of his 80-plus novels and short story collections have been turned into classic movies and TV shows, not every book from the Master of Horror has translated well into movie form, as was the case with the 1996 film adaptation of his body horror tale named Thinner. This novel about an overweight lawyer who gets a deadly weight loss curse put on him by a vengeful elderly man was one of the 7 books that King originally published under the pseudonym of Richard Bachman. And soon after Thinner was published under the Bachman name in 1984, King had his secret identity discovered and exposed by a bookstore clerk in Washington, D.C. And Bachman would officially be declared dead from cancer of the pseudonym. So it was King's actual name that was credited when the book was adapted for the big screen, with the screenplay originally being written by Beetlejuice co-writer Michael McDowell, until it was revised by the film's director, Tom Holland, who is best known for directing such 80s horror classics as the original Fright Night and Child's Play, and who had just come off of adapting Stephen King's novella The Langoliers into a not-so-good ABC miniseries. And boy, those CGI effects from the end of the Mangler are looking a little bit better in retrospect. So it shouldn't be a shock to hear that Tom Holland's second Stephen King adaptation went over just as well as his first one, with terrible critical reception and unimpressive box office. But since I've read the book and seen the movie back in my younger days, I shall find out if Thinner has ended up gaining any weight upon giving it another watch. I mean, sure, Tom Holland may be a great actor in the part of Spider-Man, but I seriously doubt he can carry any of those chops behind the camera as a film director. Hell, he was just a newborn in the year that they made this movie. Hey, wait a minute. There are 2 different Tom Hollands? Oh my god! But first, it's time to stop binge-watching Castle Rock and start binge-drinking some Rolling Rock in order to face off against the nightmares caused by the Awfully Good Drinking Game. Take a shot or drink every time you see the main character of our story weighing himself on a bathroom scale, as the story centers on an overweight lawyer by the name of Billy Halleck, and underneath that latex fat suit is none other than failed RoboCop replacement Robert John Burke, who has gone from looking like a RoboCop to an actual cop. Billy lives in an upper-class Connecticut suburb alongside his loving wife Heidi and their teenage daughter Linda, where the family discusses Billy's upcoming trial as the defense lawyer for notorious mob boss Richie the Hammer Ginelli, as played by an actor well familiar with playing mobsters, Joe Montana.
I said Joe Montana.
You'll say this is justice. This is not justice.
Try me, sweetheart.
Glad you two think this is so funny.
Oh, come on. I wouldn't have taken on Janelli's case unless I was absolutely convinced of his innocence.
Oh, of course you would think that your husband's client is a murderous psychopath just because his nickname happens to be the Hammer. Hey look, maybe that nickname is just a reference to him getting hit on the head with a hammer in Baby's Day Out. Yes, he also played a mobster in that movie, but my point still stands. And after Billy hires a private detective to act as a witness for Janelli and successfully acquits his client for murder, he returns to his law office to find out that a traveling carnival has set up shop in the middle of town, as run by a band of Romani immigrants, as referred to here by the more derogatory name of gypsies.
Honest to God, gypsies.
You see that gypsy piece of ass down there?
Don't you see what's going on here? We've been invaded by a bunch of filthy, thieving gypsies.
I don't know, Judge. They kind of bring a little fun with it.
They bring disease, crime, and prostitution. What kind of fun is that?
Whoa there, Judge. I will have you know that prostitution is a great deal more fun than disease or crime. I can ignore your racism, but I will absolutely not stand for slut-shaming. Later that night, Billy and his wife are driving home from dinner as Heidi chastises her husband for his unhealthy eating habits.
I can't help it, Heidi. All I think about is food.
Oh, easy boy, down boy.
No way, my hero. We're out of here before you explode.
Better get a bucket. I'm gonna throw up.
While at a nearby pharmacy, the elderly patriarch of the Romani family and his slightly less elderly daughter come in to fill a prescription for the cancer growing on the old man's nose.
What do you look at? Nothing.
And yes, that is none other than Stephen King himself, making one of his numerous cameos in his cinematic book adaptations, playing the role of Dr. Bangor.
You saw the old woman leave the store, Mr. Bangor.
Haha, you get it? Because that's where he's from. But as his daughter goes back to the car to get her coat, Billy's wife decides to cure her husband's cravings by snacking on some drive-through sausage. And the elderly woman tragically crosses paths with Billy Halleck's car in the middle of his automotive fellatio. Oh dear God, what have you done? You were supposed to have run over Stephen King with your car, not Tabitha King! Now how the hell is he supposed to get high on painkillers and end up riding Dreamcatcher? Billy stands before the court a few days later to answer for his accidental murder, only to end up getting off scot-free thanks to his friendship with the judge, as well as some perjurious testimony from the local police chief Hopley, played by Robert John Burke's RoboCop 3 co-star Daniel Von Bargen. But as Billy walks out of the court a free man, he finds himself ambushed by the dead woman's father and given the curse of the film's title. But not to worry, this old guy is played by the dad from My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which means that this curse can easily be lifted by just spraying a little Windex on yourself. 1 week later, Billy and his wife are astonished to find that he's lost 14 pounds over the past 7 days.
You look like you've lost weight. Of course, I haven't seen you stop eating.
Somebody call Richard Simmons.
But then Billy finds out that the judge has started to develop a rash on his chest after the old gypsy touched him as well.
Say anything?
How the hell should I know?
And Billy now begins to suspect that the old man may have actually laid a legitimate curse upon him, which is causing him to rapidly lose weight until he reaches his death.
What's there to worry about? I finally found a diet that works. Eat all you want and still lose the weight.
With Billy consuming food on a nearly constant basis in order to beat back the curse.
I have to eat like this. It's a race, and I'm losing.
Well, you don't have to sound so mean, as if it's my fault.
I'm sorry. Was I giving myself a blowjob just then?
I don't remember you complaining about it at the time.
Well, to be fair, ma'am, your husband was a little busy with the elderly woman he had just accidentally hit with his car. He didn't have any time to properly assess the quality of your blowjob. And after Billy's physician tells him that the judge has left town to help out his sister after a car accident, that's when he decides to pay a visit to the judge's wife, Lita, so she can tell Billy the real story behind her husband's sudden departure.
He touched him, and then he whispered something in his ear.
What did he say?
One word.
Plastics.
Lizard. His skin is plating. His evolution in reverse.
Aha! My conspiracy theories have finally been confirmed. The one true theory of evolution came from the Super Mario Brothers movie all along. Suck on that, Charles Darwin! Or should I say, Anthony Scapelli?
Monkey!
But now back to the scenery-chewing performance of the judge's drunken wife.
At the end, before he left, his hands were like claws. What did he say? say to you? What did the old dip say to you?
Nothing. There's no such thing as a gypsy curse.
You come back in another couple of weeks. You tell me what you believe then. You hear me? You tell me!
And since this story is in the Stephen King universe, I dearly hope that this woman's daughter turns out to be the crazy waitress from Maximum Overdrive.
We made you! You tell me!
So Billy next heads over to the home of Chief Hopley to find out if he too was also cursed by the elderly man, and finds out that the chief has been given a full body case of killer acne.
Yours is just a little slower. You'll get there eventually.
Oh please, you didn't get cursed all that bad. Just wait until you see what curse the old man gave to Dr. Bangor. No! And much like Jordy Verrill, Chief Hopley also ends up taking his life with a gun to his head. After which Billy's sanity starts taking the same downward spiral as his ever-decreasing waist size.
Please don't go through that curse thing again.
Oh, what the hell else can it be, honey, huh? It's not anorexia. I don't have a tapeworm. I'm being erased.
And worst of all, I'm starting to develop a Jack Torrance evil stare. Now Billy must use his personal connections with some local private detectives to find out that the old man's name is Tatsu Lemke, whose dark magic is assisted by his great-granddaughter Galena, played by former MTV cover girl Carrie And Billy tracks down the two leaders of the Romani clan at a nearby carnival so that he can confront them over the evil curse.
I can tell you weight from right here. 159, right? Gonna be 143. And the week after that, we don't like to think about that, do we, mister?
Ah yes, because nothing strikes fear into someone's heart more than laughing like Mary Sanderson from Hocus Pocus.
We're young.
But things start getting a little weird when Billy ends up receiving a getaway ride from his half-lizard friend.
Get in, you idiot!
Oh, come on, movie. You're telling me that this is supposed to be the judge's lizard form? I was expecting him to turn out looking like one of the Slee Stacks from Land of the Lost. And instead, he looks like he just walked off the set of The Frighteners. The next thing you know, you're gonna tell me that this entire scene will turn out to be a pointless dream sequence. Oh, god damn you! But even though the movie often goes into these moments of silliness, Robert John Burke gives a compelling performance throughout the entire film, even as his character grows more unlikable, with his great makeup work being performed by four-time Academy Award-winning makeup artist Greg Canham. Because what better way to sell your horror movie than saying it's from the same makeup artist as Mrs. Doubtfire? Hello! Billy finally catches up to the old man's campground so that he can beg him for forgiveness and take the curse off him before it's too late.
Take it off before this goes any further.
Get out or I make it worse.
And when he instead ends up receiving a ball bearing through his hand from the great-granddaughter's slingshot, Billy reciprocates the old man's curse with the curse of his own.
I curse you! The curse of the white man from town!
The curse of the white man from town is on you, pal.
And instead of giving the Romanis the actual curse of the white man from town, which is, of course, to replace their campground with a Starbucks, he ends up calling his old client Richie Ginelli to see if Richie can return the favor to Billy for his acquittal by aiding him in revenge against the old man, since Billy has grown too weak from his weight hitting the double digits.
You're not actually gonna hurt anybody, are you? If I'm gonna help you, you don't get to ask that question again.
And when Joe Mantegna returns to this movie for the last 30 minutes, he amps things up to a delightfully insane level, as the Hammer proceeds to kill off all the dogs at the gypsy camp by feeding them some poison-laced steaks, and hires himself this Brian Austin Green-looking motherfucker to act as Richie's lookout over at the gypsy camp. But then the gypsies reply back to Billy and Richie by dropping off this poor guy's mutilated corpse in front of their doorstep. Seriously guys, was the chicken head stuffed down his throat really necessary? And that's when Richie decides to clap back at the gypsies by attacking their camp with a goddamn AK-47.
They can't get away with that stuff they pulled on that kid. He was a mook, but he was my mook.
All of a sudden, we've gone from Joe Mantegna acting like a live-action version of Fat Tony, or minus the fat, to now pulling a Rambo-style massacre on a gypsy campground. I thought this was supposed to be Stephen King's Thinner, not Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time at Woodstock.
Anybody order fried sauerkraut?
Dirty fucking Indies.
And for his final act, Richie comes by the campground the next day posing as an FBI agent so he can proceed to torture Lemke's great-granddaughter with some acid to the face.
Acid, bitch. You just got a face full of soda pop and baking soda.
Hi there, I'm Joe Montaigne, and this has been a sneak peek of my upcoming prank show, Acid or Soda Pop, coming soon to my new streaming service, Montaigne Media. I guarantee you this show will crack you so consistently up.
Your friend is a pig! You dirty, filthy pig!
Sadly, this is where Richie leaves Billy behind so that he can help his crew fight off the Yakuza over possession of Marge Simpson's pretzel monies. And Lemke finally meets with Billy so that he can transfer the curse out of his body through his hand wound and pour his blood into a bubbling strawberry pie.
Somebody got to eat this pie. Everyone who eat pie die quick and bad.
And although Lemke advises Billy to eat the killer pie himself, he instead gives a piece of the pie to his unfaithful wife when he returns home that evening.
You're gonna like it. You bitch.
With the curse quickly consuming Heidi's body by the next morning.
Did you try it? Yep, you tried it.
Well, either she ate a piece of the killer pie, or she came down with a case of that Captain Tripp super flu that's been going around. Somebody should have told her to take some Flu Buddy.
Flu Buddy!
But even though Billy told his daughter to stay over at a friend's house that night, it turns out that it was not just his wife who cut herself a piece of the killer strawberry pie.
I came back after you went to sleep, and I just had a piece of your pie for breakfast.
Well, hey, look at it this way, Billy. If your daughter thinks it's okay to eat pie for breakfast, she was probably on her way to eating herself to death anyway. So this will just get it done quicker. So, happy ending? The original book jacket for Thinner describes this story as a nightmarish allegory about what lies beyond the limits of prosperous American complacency. And you can definitely tell the movie has some of the book's biting undertones of social commentary towards the unfairness of the justice system, and the way immigrants have been mistreated and ignored in American society.
Your daughter ran out between two parked cars.
Why wasn't you watching? You never see us!
However, the movie's intermittently goofy tone and potboiler dialogue make it feel more like a feature-length episode of Tales from the Crypt, and how appropriate since Tom Holland and Michael McDowell previously collaborated on a Tales from the Crypt episode. And in that context, Thinner is a very entertaining watch that makes up for its lack of scares with how amusingly cheesy it is throughout. However, when it comes to movies from 1996 that involve magically induced weight loss, I prefer the remake of The Nutty Professor. Now, why the hell didn't this movie have a wacky montage of our lead character trying on spandex?
I'm gonna scare the hell out of you.
And on the nudity watch, you do end up getting a little peek underneath Carrie Wurr's skirt. Quick, try saying Wurr skirt 5 times fast. But that is not nearly as sexy as getting to watch Robert John Burke showing off his fat latex ass. Look at him rubbing those rubber nipples of his. Even really big man would be envious of those rubber nipples! Hell, forget making RoboCop fly. RoboCop 3 should have had Murphy have his suit outfitted with some rubber nipples which shoot bullets out of them.
Don't.
You hear that, Neil Blomkamp? You should have taken my advice. On the enjoyableness continuum scale from Bull to Bruce, Stephen King's Thinner somehow manages to be a less scary adaptation of a Richard Bachman novel than The Running Man, but still manages to tip the scale to come out to a weight of 7 out of 10. And if they end up remaking this Stephen King movie, I've got 2 words for you, Hollywood. Christian Bale. I'm Jesse Shade for JoBlo.com, and since people are enormously excited for Warner Brothers' next Stephen King adaptation, we leave you now with an exclusive never-before-seen clip from the upcoming Shining sequel coming this November, Dr. Sleep.
Did you hear something?
No, I didn't hear anything.
Thank you for clicking on our video, everybody. If you like what you saw here, please make sure you like the video and subscribe and share with your friends who like this sort of content. JoBlo was created by movie fans for movie fans, and we appreciate your support.